start recording this. All right, welcome. Morning, afternoon, and night. I'm gonna start with chapter 4 and section 4.2. Obvious things which maybe aren't so obvious. Part 2. All right. There's something that's sort of obvious in a dull way, but that's also maybe not so obvious until our attention is called to it. There is an implicit and sitting between each attributes we define on a record. So for all these templates, we're saying status is and together in, or should I say a better way would be a record status and its attributes are all and together in an implicit way. So you're saying for this status to exist, these templates all need to be in place in a certain order by a certain requirement. And by adding all these things together and saying you only have one status, you're implicitly saying that they have to have values. All right, which is, like I said, pretty obvious. However, the effect of these ands have the effects these ands have on us might be less obvious. Their influence is subtle, yet, if we're not careful, corrupting. Without caution, they can cause us to accidentally shift where we express the meaning in our programs. This is what happened to us when we introduced the complete on and complete by family of attributes. We stopped expressing our meaning in code. Instead, we started baking the meaning into the English prose that lives in the code. So we're saying this, but ideally, we want to say this and then this, right? So this, sometimes this. So we should have a different way to organize our data. What does it mean to add this to into this place as we did here, right? What does it mean? This completed is more amplified. As a result, our code stopped describing what it is. Actually, it's a bit worse than that. It started describing something other than what it is. As we design our status type, we are trying to model something that involves multiple ideas. A checklist item that's not started, a checklist item that's completed, or a checklist item that has been skipped. However, our code doesn't say anything at all about these or those different options. There's no this or that. There's only and, which is why there's so much friction between what our code says a status is versus what we know a status is supposed to mean. The design of our code, with its completed on and completed by attributes, really only express exactly one of those many possible states. As I said, a checklist item that has been completed, that's what it amplifies. That's what we are saying by adding this completed thingy. A checklist item that has been completed. If you read the code exactly as it's written, that's exactly what it says. Why else would it have those attributes? The other states, like not started, are achieved by using null to bludgeon past what the code says and hoping for the best. This is the trick that the ands play on us when we're not paying attention. They convince us to stick a bunch of attributes together that don't actually go together. Why would we have completed on there if the status isn't actually completed yet? the code start expressing the wrong thing. So, we are forced to start side channeling what we actually mean elsewhere. Suddenly, the pros we put into our names start pulling double duty. Words like completed, incompleted on becomes more important than the code itself. They have to do all the work of conveying to the reader what's written in the code is wrong. We're entirely relying on our readers to get it when they find keywords like completed. We expect them to understand a completely unstated expectation that the code should be interpreted in a special way, and one which directly contradicts what the code says. We force readers of our code to parse it along multiple semantic dimensions, right? There's the initial reading of the code as code, but this is, of course, incomplete or misleading, so they have to read the code again, but this time as English pros to see if they can pull out any contextual clues which can patch where the code is incorrect. All right. So instead we're saying, as far as Java is concerned, the completed on or by attributes are exactly the same as every other attributes on the record. The code we've written makes no distinction to their special context. So this is what we did, and completed on. This is not the kind of code we want. Whenever I get stuck down parts like this during the design process, it's usually when I take a step back and try to pare down to what the core thing we're talking about is. Usually, this is like, oh, okay, what is it that I'm actually trying to say? There's something that exists in the data that doesn't exist in the code. What is it that we're missing? It's here that we can fall back to the simple exercise we introduced in chapter 2, comparing the meaning of our data with the meaning of our code. This is our guiding light through the darkness. The design process is largely just bringing the two worlds into alignment. So, checklist status. So this status has the following meaning. We have a template and a step, a user who completed it, an instant where the user have completed that, and we have a boolean that's completed. Checklist, the idea, has the following meaning. Has the item been started? Has that checklist been completed? Or. But here we're saying these are all, it all has to happen together, right? Because on a truth table, the only way you get a true value is when all of them are one. One being on or off, and 0 being off. A checklist status isn't one single thing with a sea of nullable, sometimes defined attributes. It's a multitude of top-level ideas, each described by their own set of relevant attributes. This is what's missing from our modeling. What's really interesting here is that and changes once you start paying attention to it. If it's implicit and in the background, it puts a negative downward pressure on our design process. It causes us to combine attributes which don't belong together. However, if we design consciously while paying attention or careful attention to what it means to add two attributes together, it becomes a positive upward pressure on our designs. It helps us discover when we've gone off track early in the design process. We just have to learn to listen to the feedback it gives us. So 4.2.1, designing consciously with ands. Okay, the only trick here is learning to read the code for exactly what it says. The big allure is to do what we did in the previous sections, rely on English prose reading of the code to supply the meaning. Instead, we'll read the code as though we are the Java compiler for exactly what it says as written and no more. So this is really important. This is how I'll just, now this is what I need. You know what I mean? Yeah, like, let me do it. Don't just do it for me. So let's take another stab at designing our status data types. Just as before, we know that its natural key is formed by the template and step for which it is tracking the status. We know combining those attributes is a step in the right direction. Okay, I'll take it. So let's take another stab at designing our status data type. Just as before, we know that its natural key is formed by the template and step for which it is keeping. Oh my god. Just as before, we know that its natural key is formed by the template and step for which it is tracking the status. We know combining those attributes is a step in the right direction. This is crazy, man. I'm sorry. Going piece by piece. Okay, so let's start. Let's say we have this status. So I think we're just creating different status, right? Like, let's do like this. Status. Let's say we have. Let's do what they're doing. Okay, our record. Let's see, we call this new. Maybe new status, right? Actually, I need that here. Cool. And here we're going to have a template. I don't know why my template is now. Do we have a template? Yeah, we do. Template. We call it a template, and then we're going to have a step. The step, we'll call it a step. A step. Cool. So now this is status. Cool. All right. Next, we introduce another attribute. Again, paying attention. So we know that we have a template and a step. Now we're going to introduce another attribute, paying attention to what the combination of these attributes mean to us. So let's find that. Right, paying attention to what these attributes mean for our data type as a whole as we combine them together, and this is going to be boolean is completed, correct? All right, so now we get to our first contextual attribute, completed by, right? So we now have a user, so completed by. I see two completeds, completed by. So it has to be, this is one thing, right? Completed by, I guess it's going to be one thing. Okay. This is where we hit the first major issue, right? Correct. So we have completed by. Okay, this attribute immediately causes friction, but why? What is it conflicting with? The other attributes? Not really. If you combine a template, a step, and completed by, you have something that sounds perfectly valid. In fact, it sounds a lot like the exact data we would have for describing a status, that a status has been completed. So why don't we call it completed? The friction is with where we're putting these attributes and what we are wanting it to mean. This definition of attributes is only a problem if they're being combined under a data type called status, because they don't describe a generic status. They describe a completed status. So let's allow the ending of the attributes to guide us rather than fighting it. They're saying this is completed. So here, yes, fine, new, and I'm going to call it complete. I'm going to call it complete. And I'm going to take by what user, and then I'll have instant on this user on this day. Correct. Now we don't. So why did we take out complete is own data type? Okay, do you feel that? It's like things suddenly snap into focus. Everything that was wrong with our previous model where we were storing completed or non-completed by on a record called status. Okay, so we have on and by. Okay, immediately disappears when we stop fighting against what this combination of attributes wanted to express, that it represents something that is completed. This to me is one of the best moments during the design phase. It's what makes spending all of the time massaging the data and pursuing its meaning worth it. It feels a bit like unlocking something that was hidden. Check out the body of our record in listing 4.29. That used to be filled with defensive validation code that existed only to guard against the nonsensical states that our modeling allowed. Now it's totally empty. Those illegal states have been completely eliminated. So now I think what he means is we don't have to defend. We don't have to throw. No throwing or validation needed. That takes that away. This can only be one thing. It can only be completed, nothing else. But of course, this is just one of the checklist states, and having a checklist item that's only ever completed doesn't make sense. We need to model the remaining states. That's cool. What's cool is that we've unearthed something fundamental about how to model the remaining items in our domain. We know from all of our work so far that there's no way to stick that information onto the same record and by just adding things together. If we try, we'd end up right back where we started: nulls, illegal states, and defensive programming. So our modeling hand is forced. We have to create a new type. All right. Okay. I don't know what this is here. All right. So I guess another start type would be what is it called? Skipped. Right. So let's try this. We're gonna have a record. Record is going to be called skipped. That was one of the recommendations, right? So here we're going to still have a template. I'm going to call it a template. It has a step value. Okay, so if something has been skipped, yeah, so should have a step. What do we want? We want the person who skipped it. So user I'm gonna just call it by. It was skipped by who, and instant on, or should I say when? When on when? Okay. Well, I don't know yet. I think that is this, and I believe we have also a template. A template to me, yeah, it's just this values. That's a template. That is where to start from. This, I believe, is the foundation. Cool. Yeah, okay. But of course, is run a checklist and blah blah blah, unearthed something. Force. Okay, so we have when a checklist isn't started yet, it is not started. So it makes no sense, right? So let's do this. So not started. We'll see if the not started is gonna have this. So probably this should be our foundation there. You know what I mean? So not started should not have a user, and it should not have whether it's been acted on or not, because we don't have a user. The only way we have a user, the only way something has been acted on is when it has a user. So if imagine you're walking on like a sprint and you have this tickets, right, that you have to walk on. Names aren't assigned to anybody, so it's going to be in the to-do status rack, right, on the column, and immediately you pick that that ticket, you add your name, it's assigned to you, and then you have a date that is finished, right? That's consistent, I'd say. So that's how I'm looking at them. I'm looking at it as a Excel sheet, and we have a column for not started, started, in progress, or whatever you want to call it, and then you have skipped or completed by. That's how I'm looking at it as a column. Not started can only have those two attributes because that's what it means to be not started, because we are not including attributes that don't belong. We are able to smoothly add these other states. And again, no defensive programming needed in the constructor. Adding skipped values. So these are skipped values. So with our original modeling, let me delete 1J and I'll start. This is the foundation. With our original modeling, each time we added a new status to our checklist, it was a stressful ordeal. We kept ending up with new illegal states that needed to be defended against, and those defenses needed tested, and the meaning of those new states had to be conveyed outside of the code through naming hints like do something uncompleted, right? With our new modeling, we can freely add more and more status types for our checklist without any conflict. This is how we use and to our advantage. We let it push us towards modelings that group the right attributes together. This is important. This new awareness makes adding the skipped status a breeze. So we have that. So you have templates like I have. You have a step like I have. Do you have is completed? Why do we have is completed in new status? It's completed. That's by definition what that means. Correct. So let's have skipped. Template, yeah. Step, user, skipped by, skipped on, and then we have to have a reason. That is what it means. We have a string reason. Why did you skip this? Right? Why was it skipped? Okay, This is the power of data modeling. We've made illegal states impossible to even express in the code. They've been deleted from the code as a whole. They just don't even exist. I'm not going to read this note. I don't know what this note is about. I'm going to breeze through ORs. All right. Our individual statuses are well modeled, but they're currently just sort of floating out there in the general ether, which makes up our domain. We know that not started, completed, and skipped are all checklist statuses, but nothing in the code ties them together. So right now, you can see we're not, right now, all this are just there. They don't mean a lot. Actually, we can actually just delete this, right? We can delete this, and now we have this. We have this, and this is our code. This is our code. Step template. Now, still have steps. We still have templates. We just don't have a status yet. Okay, cool. What we want is to bring them all together under a single canonical data that denotes what these records are. That these records are all related, but represent different options with a single idea. So we have a checklist status, okay, and in that checklist status has the meaning of this or this or that. So maybe we should create a record. I'm gonna create under it checklist status. Okay, yank the word, create a record. I'm gonna call it this. And should create that. Does that even make sense? Because we want to be able to relate, and interfaces are good for that. Oh, looking down, you see that. Okay, so interfaces are as data types. So interfaces can be data types. Interfaces are usually associated with behavior. They represent a contract that the implementing code promises to satisfy. However, interfaces can also be used for things other than behaviors. They can be used as data. So this can be a data. All right. And here, instead of a record, we have an interface. I don't know. Face of a data type. Cool. And I think these, I don't know how you do that. You say they implement that, correct? You have to implement checklist, something like that. So yank 2 words. Yeah, like that. That's good. So you have all this, and you have them as data type. Yeah, so they implement that, and you can very easily say, let's say you have multiple templates, right? So you have template 2, and then you have template 2 and 3. Right, so you have all this templates, right? And I guess, oh, so let's say you have all these templates. This should be not started. This should be, I think, completed, and this should be skipped. Let's even that. I think we can have in progress. We can have this. Not that. In progress. Started, and started by, let's say user by home. Know what I mean? So kind of like in progress type thing. In progress. Something like that. In progress type thing. So you picked it up. You're just working on it. It hasn't been completed. It hasn't, just in progress. So here we can actually create. We can create statuses. If that makes any sense. So we'll say we're gonna create a checklist. Say a checklist. List status. Not started. Is gonna be new. Not started. 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 We're gonna give it a template. Template is template. Is gonna have a step. Correct? Cool. And we're gonna have another checklist. Completed. Complete. And complete cannot be that. It has to be complete. Cool. It's gonna have a step. I'm gonna call it V1. And here we're gonna have complete. We're gonna have user. Do we have a user here? Let's create a user. Me equal new user record. Dr. Dre. Right, so we give it a user. Or should I say me? That's a terrible naming convention. Let's go back and call it Dr. Dre. And it should have completed when instant dot now. Right, so this has been done. And now the last one we're going to have is a checklist skipped. This is so beautiful, bro. This is just beautiful. It's gonna be skipped by Dre, and the reason I do not know how to finish this. That's my rationale. Instance. All right. So here, as you can see, we can just print all of them, right? You can print not started. You can print complete. Complete. You can print skipped. Well, with ln, you want another ln as well, so that when you're done, all that is good. And remember, we have to use SDK. I think it's use Java SDK use Java 25 SDK use Java. What is SKD, man? SDK use Java 25, because that's the only way we get this to run. All right, so here we say Java old dot Java. Ooh, implements checklist status, and what is it telling us? Cannot find symbol checklist. Oh, it's little letters, not small. Jeez, man. All right, so let's open it and take care of that problem. All right, so find C, do that, and that. As you can see, we've updated that. Get out of here. Let's go back and run it and see how new error. Okay, template. Oh, what is that? Old. What did I do here? Template. This should have warned me, man. And this should be template 2. It should. Where am I? Need template 2. Right? Template 2. Okay, let's clear. Let's run Java. New skipped. Instant. So we found that. As you can see, this is real debugging in real time. Alright, skipped. Okay, so it was telling us, was it called? Instant. What is skipped? Instant dot now. We have that. That was actually warning us, and no one said shit. Okay, Java old.java. Good. Now we have our things. We have the completed, we have the started, we have the skipped, and we have our instance. Cool. After a long time. Let's exit this. And let's cover it and go. All right, so that is that for this. Here, okay, so this setup is a lot like creating a fancy enum. That's correct. So listing, comparing enums with interfaces and records. Interfaces and records. So you create an enum. So you can actually do that? You can actually do this? This is insane. So you can say, wait, is this true, or is it just, you can say enum, it's gonna be exactly status, it's going to be equal to this guy's. It's going to be not started. It's going to be in progress, and it's going to be maybe skipped and then completed. Complete. We are creating an enumeration of the possible values our checklist can be. The big departure from enums and what gives us so much power is that records allow us to attach arbitrary attributes to each of our enumeration states. We are not restricted to fixed constants like we are with enumerations. Alright, so this will be it for today. I'll catch you. I guess this is really neat. So we actually have like an enum of our record types. So we're saying, ooh, but why can't it be an enum of one thing? Right? Why can't it be like why can't we just say hey, give us an enum of checklist status? You know what I mean? Because they all implement that, right? They all implement that. So ideally, I'd say maybe you should, let's see if this actually compiles. SDK is Java 2025. See if it does complete. If it does compile. Yeah, so it's saying enum error interface checklist already defined in old class. Yep. I did not think that will happen. How about saying this? Maybe it is just SDK use. I will not get out of there. Java 25. Java Java. Alright, so you cannot use an equal sign. That is something I thought was true. This is just for my purposes. There is no need to follow me, but let's say you want to actually just create a status, right? Like a status. Do we have something that's called a status? Cool. So let's actually oh yeah, so this works. This absolutely works. That's awesome. All right, got you.